It's the Lockdown Flyers podcast for Thursday, January 16th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that wonders what the heck is going on with the New York Islanders right now.
Great question.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. To keep up with our latest episode and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are going to check in with the Flyers prospects that played or did not play for Team Canada during World Juniors and see how they've been doing since then. We've got a draft eligible prospect to look at in Luka Radivojevic, and that name might sound familiar to you, and it does for good reason. But tonight, the Flyers are facing the New York Islanders for the first time this season, which sounds insane. And I think, we do play them in the preseason, so maybe that's why it feels like we played them already, but no. So it's the first of 4 meetings, so that's a lot of times to see this team. And I say that with love, weirdo team right now.
Nobody knows what to make of them, honestly.
They're so confusing right now. So they're last in the Metro, 5-5 in their last 10. They had been on a 3-game win streak before their loss to the Ottawa Senators on Tuesday. They're a solid 8 points behind the Bruins in that first wild card spot and 7 behind the Blue Jackets, who unfortunately, as we know, the Flyers just lost to in the shootout for that second slot. And interestingly, so given this game is on the road, the Islanders are 7-10-2 on home ice this season, which is not pretty.
No, I mean, I remember hearing about a week ago they may have had the most 1-goal losses in the league. So that's probably part of their problem. And so, yeah, I mean, when you play the Islanders, they're not a bad team. Like, they're not an awful bad team.
Right.
It's just, they have these inconsistencies and sometimes they can't close out games.
Yeah, there's just a real lack of motivation there. And, from recent interviews, talking about sometimes with their lack of scoring that they've had recently,
or the last 3 years, but yeah.
Well, yes, but more recently, Lou can't figure out what's wrong with this team. Patrick Roy can't figure out what's wrong with this.
I'm surprised Patrick Roy is still there. I thought he would get frustrated and leave.
Yeah, like that he would make the choice to walk away, because that's something he would do if he's like, well, I'm not effective here and this is not fun. So
he's trying everything. I give him credit. He is.
He really is, and they're in the middle of this 7-game homestand, which in theory should be the thing that can reset a team. But
if it doesn't, they're done. Yeah, if it doesn't, it probably never resets.
Right. And I think, to be fair, part of the problem is injuries. Simon Holmstrom just was put on IR with an upper body injury. Mike Riley was on IR. Romanov wasn't practicing Tuesday at the optional, didn't play in the game. He's still day-to-day. Hudson Fasching out up to 2 weeks there. JG Pageau was sick in the last game. Don't know if he'll be back for this one. And then I think, most importantly, the goaltending has been a bit of, an upheaval there this season. Varlamov's on IR. He was supposed to be practicing this week. Haven't seen a timetable for his return. Ilya Sorokin was day-to-day with an illness. Not sure if he'll be back yet either, but he is more likely than Varlamov, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
But the bright spot here is Marcus Högberg has been playing well in net for them, and
I'm sure Sweden will be scouting them, like I said.
Well, yeah, 25 saves on 27 shots in that loss to Ottawa. He's got a 950 save percentage in his 5 games with the Isles.
So it's not his fault. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, that's you're gonna run into a hot goalie and against a team that's gonna try and play a defensive game. I think Pellick's back now, but he was out too.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean they've got some of their players back. This is gonna probably be one of those struggle low event games. Like I could just smell it.
Yeah, unfortunately, when the Flyers go into games there, right? It the Flyers always seem to have a hard time scoring.
Yeah,
It's just this thing that keeps happening, and then, you have Martin will score a goal, Nelson will score, although Nelson's
right.
on the trading block a little bit right now, which is a thing to watch, but
Yes.
I think, Cizikas scores a goal,
He always scores a goal.
he always scores a goal, and it's just infuriating to me because the Flyers could be on a roll playing the best defense of their lives, and Casey Cizikas will score a goal against them in the game,
Yeah.
and it's like, how do the Flyers combat that and, like, change the narrative here?
I mean, you just can't. There are just some guys that, victimize other teams, especially in division. I mean, if you're keeping Barzell off the board, and let's say
Mhm.
Pageau's playing, and you're keeping him off the board, and you're kind of boxing Nelson out so he's not in the crease every 10 seconds, you know, then you're doing okay. I mean, Lee is not what he used to be,
Yeah,
and they don't have a lot of playmakers.
right. I mean, I think Anders Lee has done better recently, but the arc of the season has not been stupendous for him.
No,
That's
no.
for sure.
But they're going to play tough, and they're going to
Yeah.
be motivated to beat the Flyers because these two teams don't like each other.
Yeah, and I would say that, like, defensively for the Islanders, they're kind of hot and cold. They're either playing the best game of their lives or it's like the worst thing you've ever seen on skates. Like, I just feel like there's no middle ground for the defense here.
Yeah, I mean Noah Dobson's a stud, so you do have to watch out for
Yeah.
him, and Pullock is still hard to deal with at times and does have a rocket of a shot when it's power play time. So, there are certain things you have to watch out for, and if Sorokin's healthy, he could shut out anybody. Like he can. So,
Yeah.
these are things where the Flyers just have to stick to their game and go with that. Make sure Frost has a prominent spot because a guy with a lot of skill like that can be really good. Uh, that could throw them off because this is a game where just mucking and grinding plays right into the Islanders' hands. You kind of have to outskill them, really.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And speaking of skills or lack thereof, the Islanders have not just the worst power play in the league, but the worst penalty kill in the league too.
Yeah.
Like, that's a pretty hard thing to do, is be the worst at both of those things.
Yeah. When you're worst at both, it's not a good time.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is that the Isles are 4th worst in the NHL right now at goals for per game, but the Flyers are 4th worst at goals against per game. And so, like, what could possibly go wrong here given that?
Everything. It's a rivalry. Like in rivalry
Yeah.
games, we could blurt out all these stats, and a lot of times it goes by the wayside the first 5 minutes, especially if it gets heated right away, which it could.
Right, and, this is, obviously part of, like, this mini road trip for the Flyers. It's the middle game, so sometimes that's the hardest one
Yes.
to play your best at when you have this kind of scenario. And I think to your point, yeah, scoring goals early and often is going to be really important
Yeah, you
for
want
the
to put them
Flyers.
down. I mean, they're not a good team to come
Yeah,
back.
right. Exactly. Exactly. And, they are 29th in the NHL, and at goals for per game, like I said, 2.6, well below the margin that they would need to in order to predict winning. But they do have their moments, and they did beat Vegas recently, so pretty handily. So
I'd say the two most volatile, the way they react. They're volatile in the way they react to things in the league. But Waz seems a little too calm these days, so you never know when he's gonna bubble over. And last game, Schwartz was beside
yeah,
himself at times. So both of
yeah,
them could start screaming at each other and hurling insults, and it wouldn't shock me.
yeah. But also, I feel like Roy is in this like acceptance mode with this
Yeah,
team,
yeah, it does seem that
that
way.
he's not going to get too upset over anything unless it's a bad call. Unless
Right,
he objects to a call, I think that could upset him. But his team could play great, and he'll be like, "Oh, that's new and weird,"
right.
and his team could play terrible, and he'd be like, "Yeah, that's it is what it is." So
Yeah, I mean, at the end
I
of
don't
the day,
know.
it's Patrick Waugh, and he's unpredictable that way, and so is Tortorella. But I would say that there could be some fireworks.
There could be, but, so should be an interesting game to say the least. Very important one for the Flyers, as we know, given where everything is in the playoff race. We will talk about how the game turned out on tomorrow's show. In the meantime, we thought we'd check in on some of the Flyers prospects who were connected to Team Canada for World Juniors and what their playing situation has been since then. We're going to do it coming up next.
You just realized your business needed to hire somebody yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored job post puts your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. I've been in that spot where you need to hire like yesterday. The pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs come in handy, and they make your post seen by the right candidates now. Now you could speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need.
All right, on tomorrow's show, we will talk about this game. We're going to look ahead to the Devils this weekend, which is I think, bigger problem for the Flyers
Yeah,
at
we'll
the
be at that
moment.
game.
So, yeah, we will. So, looking forward to that. In the meantime, after World Juniors, there was, I think a letdown for Team Canada, to say the least. And
Yeah,
right. And so from our perspective, I think there's a few things. There was the you should have picked Denver Barkey in the first place, like told you so about
right.
it. And then there's also the why didn't you give Carson Bjarnason a shot question? And then also, why didn't you use Jett Luchanko properly? And to a slightly lesser extent, Oliver Bonk, especially on
Right.
the power play, right? So just wanted to see how these guys have responded after, their varying situations related to World Juniors. Right now, our two London guys, London is still a great team.
Yeah.
They're sitting atop their division. They're going to be in a great spot going into the OHL playoffs. But Denver Barkey has especially risen to the challenge here. And since he was left off Canada's roster on December 13th when they made the announcement, he's got 8 goals and 13 assists, including a 5-assist game on New Year's Eve. He had a 4-point game against Owen Sound. He's got 5 goals and 6 assists in the last 3 games right now. So one might say that he was a little salty about it and
Well,
capitalized.
all I heard was he got 5 assists on New Year's Eve, and on New Year's Eve, Canada lost to the US.
Yep.
So Canada could have used that production. He's getting over 2 points a game. Like, I don't know. Like,
Yep.
again, this is certainly he's used it as fuel, and good for him.
Yeah. There's only 2 games since then that he didn't get on the board in some way, shape, or form. I mean, that's
That's pretty
absolutely
effective.
ridiculous. That's like they're over 9 or 10 games. Like that's pretty darn good. He's
Impressive.
got 52 points in 32 games. Like you said, he's like getting close to 2 points per game there for
Well,
his
he is 2
stats.
points a game, like, since the World Juniors, I think,
Oh
but
yeah.
he's getting close to
Since
it just
then.
in general, which is nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, that is absolutely nuts. So, I think obviously he is in good shape, in terms of his development and where he needs to be in order to then take the next step, I think, and
Yeah.
translate that to the pro game at this point.
Yeah, I think, that's his next step. I still think there should be time in the AHL for him, and I think there will be.
Yes.
And that's good. I mean, let him go down there, let him start going through the rigors. I would put him there for the whole season. I wouldn't put pressure on him to make the team at all. And yeah, he's on a good path.
Yeah, absolutely. So Carson Bjarnason officially made the team, but did not play and was not even registered as a member of the team on site at the tournament. Russ, you can speak a little more to that than I can since you were on the ground there.
Yeah, I asked about Carson Bjarnason when I was in Ottawa, and nobody had a good answer as to why he wasn't registered with the team. So they never even registered him. He didn't do anything there. He just sat around. And to me, it's crazy. You pulled him out of action, and he just, I guess, maybe he gets a Team Canada tote bag. But beyond that, what the hell did he do? Nothing.
Right. So he hadn't played a complete game since December 7th in the WHL. For Brandon, once he was pulled for selection camp and all of
Yeah.
that, he did play two partial games pre-tournament for Canada. He played one period versus Sweden and stopped 6 of 6 shots that he faced. Versus Switzerland, he played the second half of the game and let one goal in on 4 shots. I read a little bit about that game because, again, not broadcast, not
No,
available to even attempt to watch, but that, he had like almost no action. And sometimes, like,
that could be
you
bad.
miss, it can be bad. And that's essentially what happened in that game, according to
Plus, he hadn't had
all
work in so
reports.
long. Like, he was going to
Yep.
be rusty.
Right. So now he's like even more rusty, right? And for goaltenders, as we've talked about with Fedotov and
Yeah.
how they've handled him,
Yeah.
he plays his first games back since December 7th, starting on January 10th. Very recently, he's played 2 games. And the first game did not go great for him, 6 goals against. The second game, 3 goals against in a loss, but his save percentage was .923 in that game. 36 saves on 39 shots. 39 shots. So to go from like very little action to then 2 games back with Brandon, who are notoriously not good, he faced 43 shots against in his first game back and 39 in his second.
Yeah, that's so that's good though. He needs to see rubber. He'll get
Yeah.
back in the swing of things. So this is good for him. The thing with Canada was a shame.
Yeah, I think so. Jett Luchanko, of course, did play for Team Canada. We had
Sort of.
talked, sort of, yes, very limited and in very weird usage, as we talked about. You can go back to listen to our World Junior recap show. We were very annoyed about the whole
Yeah.
thing. But he wound up not getting traded at the deadline in the OHL. So
Which is
he's
again
still on.
puzzling to me.
Right, it is interesting. So he's gonna be with Guelph for the remainder of this season, and the GM of Guelph said, was asked about were there any offers, did he talk about it? And he's like, "Yeah, we talked to his family, we talked to the Flyers, but like no deal that seemed worth it popped up. So, we didn't trade him." And like it seems like the Flyers didn't go overboard in pressuring them, at
Right.
least.
Which is fine. I mean, I get that. But they had to realize it'd be better if he got out of there.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand it. This is a little puzzling to me.
Right. So, we talked about London being at the top of the division. Guelph is 4th out of 5 teams in that division. And, their winning percentage is .388. Like, it's not good.
No,
It's
how is this
really
good?
not
That's what I'm
good.
saying. It's like this is not a good situation.
Right. So now, as for Jett Luchanko himself, there's a lot of highs and lows with this kid, as we are finding out. And so he had like an absolutely highlight reel goal on January 8th against Erie. That phenomenal move, right? And so he's played 2 games since World Juniors. The first game, he didn't get on the board. His second game, 2 goals and an assist in that game against Erie. However, he did commit a major penalty and was suspended for the next 2 games. So we won't see him again until Friday, tomorrow, for his return. So, a little give and take with Jett right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I really, to be honest, I expected more development in this year, but in a way, this might be good in the sense that the Flyers can't look at this now and say, "Oh yeah, we're going to pencil in Jett Luchanko for next year." They should not do that.
Mhm. No.
And maybe in the end, this will be the best thing for him, because now there really is no problem sending him back, because he can get traded to another team and really show what he can do. Where in Guelph, he can only do so much.
Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting question. I think, we'll have to revisit this at the end
Yes.
of the season and see where he winds up, and then look at his development camp, I think, to see what kind
Yeah.
of shape he comes in, and how he looks and his confidence level. Because again, missing a whole slew of time in junior hockey because of World Juniors, and then not really playing to the best of
Yeah. Just
your
playing a
ability
really
there.
lousy role. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real ding on his season. So I think it'll be interesting to see. But yes, I would not expect to have him be with the Flyers at the beginning of next
No.
season unless something drastic is
Right.
different for the remainder of the season. Oliver Bonk just trucking along, doing his thing. He's got a couple of assists in his 2 games back. I think he was the least harmed by Team Canada in all of this.
He just
But
could have
I
done
think,
better if they'd have left him on the bumper. Like, it was
yep,
clear he was
I
going to
know.
be able to really produce there. And they were like, no, 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 we don't want you to produce there. We're going to put you at the point instead, because Dickinson's not coming through. And then that just fouled up Bonk.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, he had 7 shots on goal in his last game for London, so I think he's gonna be fine. I have no
Yeah, he'll
worries
be
about
okay.
him.
No, no, he'll
Uh,
be fine.
yeah. All right. Well, that's our existing prospects. We're gonna continue our discussion about draft eligible prospects of guys who could become Flyers with Luka Radivojevic coming up next. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. And one of my favorite things that I've been to recently is the Broadway show Wicked, which I really wanted to see and hadn't been back to the theater in a long time. Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And I was looking for those tickets because I'd seen the movie and wanted to see how the second half went because I didn't remember. So I found an amazing deal. I could even see the view from my seat before buying. The super deal was particularly impressive. It offers great seats at unbeatable prices, and the app's all in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use the code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code Locked On NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So, Russ, Luka Radivojevic, really interesting prospect. We've been wanting to talk about him for a while. He's injured now, and that could
Yeah.
have an effect on things. But we talk about Oliver Bonk, and Luka Radivojevic is also a slightly smaller defenseman
Hmm.
at 5'10". He is the son of Branko Radivojevic. And as a result, he has dual USA and Slovakian citizenship, but plays for Slovakia in international hockey. He was on the World Junior team for them this year, and that's where he got hurt. There was a kneeing injury when they were playing the Finns, I believe. And so that kind of knocked him out of the tournament. But he had 2 assists in 5 games played, and one was one of the top 3 Slovaks in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, he did good. And the shame of it all is he would have been playing in this All-American game, but he's off
Yeah.
the roster for that now too. And so that's an opportunity. He could have been in front of like 100 scouts. So, they know who he is, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's good if you could shine in a game like this, and he's not going to get the opportunity.
Right. And because he has the dual citizenship, and he is, raised in America pretty much, he does play in the USHL for Muskegon,
Yes.
and had 10 assists in 19 games played prior to the injury. But he started the season over in Sweden and then came over here. And I'm just wondering if you have insight on like why he did that or what the advantage might be.
I don't have insight as to why. My guess is he probably has designs on going to college, and he hasn't committed to anywhere yet, but that's my guess. So I think he went and decided, yeah, I'll go to the USHL, and then he can make that next progression. And I think that's probably what he's working towards.
Yeah, I would say so. He just turned 18
Yeah,
last week or a couple weeks ago. He is a puck moving defenseman, and that's what was so impressive in the
yeah,
little I saw of him in World Juniors. That he's very good at zone exits and
yeah.
getting the puck up ice
He's a good skater.
uh, there. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a really good skater. He's definitely got energy. Uh, I know people look at him and say, well, he's 5'10", 165, but but Branko Radivojevic was a little bigger than that. And so like I think if a team, grabs him, they might say, hey, maybe he does grow a little. Sometimes guys do. And so I would take the chance on him because his skills are there. Like he definitely needs to get stronger at 165. That's not going to cut it, but he'll gain weight and he'll those things will work themselves out. But to me, he looks like a good third round pick.
Right. And, the rankings right now, he's like in the second round there, but the most recent central scouting list that came out had him at 120 and third round, given his size, seems about right
Yeah.
to me.
Early in the season, I got really excited. I put him like 32 because that's always my holding spot. Maybe you're a first
Right.
rounder, maybe you're a second rounder. And then he didn't really do enough to stay in that list. And so now I think he'd be out of my second round, although the World Juniors was pretty good for him. It wasn't great. So it's kind of like, all right, you're a third rounder.
Right. And I think this is the kind of pick you use on a guy like this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, because there's going to be a long development cycle. You happen to know his dad, so that would be a good thing to get insight on him. And yeah, I mean, again, you're always going to need puck moving defensemen with a little bit of offense. Like there's always room for these guys. And don't tell me, hey, we got Andre now and we got this, we got that. We don't need it's like, listen, this is 4 or 5 years from now. So you don't worry about that today.
Right. Interestingly, so NHLentrydraft.com had some stats from World Juniors,
Mhm.
and he had 15.2 shots per 60 in the tournament, and the team average was 10.4. So he was well out shooting his
Yeah, he was
teammates there.
firing for sure.
Yeah, and so I think that is, like, something you wanna see, right? So you wanna see
Yes.
your defenseman get the puck up the ice, take the shot. Maybe it's to create a rebound, maybe it's
Right.
a carom kinda shot there, and, he's not really the finisher here, he's the starter,
Right.
right?
And that's
In
exactly what
these
he is.
yeah.
He is the starter and he does do those things and he has energy and he has really good wheels and yeah, I mean I think there's he's a tricky guy to try and cover when he is bringing the puck up the ice. There is definitely some skills, some good skills here.
Yeah, and I saw a scouting report that said, he was especially good at puck retrieval, so
Hmm.
if somebody's gotta skate quickly back into the defensive zone and grab
Yeah,
the
he could
puck,
do it.
he can do it and then also create a really good zone exit out of it
Right.
too.
Yeah, he goes and gets it and then does a good thing with the puck after. Like that's what he does.
Yeah, which, sounds great to me for a third round pick, that,
Absolutely. It's
you
you know,
take
you
you take a
you never
gamble.
have enough to yeah, you can never have enough defensemen.
Yeah, do you think, like, given the injury, is there a way to, like, get him as a steal here, do you think?
I mean, it's always possible he could slip to the fourth if, people are like, well, he's 5'10", and how many 5'10" defensemen play in the NHL? And sure, I get it. There's a low amount, although there's this guy named Lane Hudson who could win the Calder and could end up being like one of the most productive rookie defensemen ever. But yeah, there's that too.
Right. Well, we'll see how he does in terms of coming back from injury potentially. And of course, we're going to continue to take a look at draft eligible prospects kind of up and down the rounds here. We
Yeah.
don't just want to cover the potential first rounders here, but we will because the Flyers have three of those picks. So it's very important. So stay tuned. Typically, Thursdays are the day of the week that we talk about
Yep.
the draft eligibles. And given that it is the new year, we're going to do them almost every week. So very excited to do
It's that
that.
time of the
And
year.
it really is. So that will do it for today's show. We'll be back tomorrow to talk Flyers versus Isles. We're going to preview the game against the Devils and check in on that all important playoff race and see how everybody else is doing. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got mailbag questions or Flyers thoughts, let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, all on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen. For your next listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert. Get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.